under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know.
I've done it to myself. So.
And I do appreciate, because I know you had hoped to be here last week, and most of us were gone then too. So, if you wouldn't mind starting, and we'll record and share with the folks when they're here.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Catherine. So, Brandon Dole, got Edwards Architecture. Had the pleasure of working with Skylar and some of his staff on the exciting new rec center. And so the scope of work that I've been doing is kind of two pieces, right? One is helping address code implications with the building. We know that there's some history with the building department, so I've met with Bob Mitchell, and we've come to an agreement as to what we need to do there. And then the second piece of the scope of work is really long-term visioning, addressing some of the deferred maintenance that the school district avoided, right, that you guys will have to do to kind of get this facility up to where you actually want it. So what I'd like to do is, I have a packet here, and I think Skylar sent out PDFs of all this previously.
And Mike, do you have your copy of this packet handy?
I don't have a copy of anything.
Okay.
When I left town, I don't have a copy of the board packet. All I have is an agenda for the workshop. I don't have anything. I'm having a very hard time hearing since no one has microphones there. It just sounds terrible.
I'll try to project a little bit
I'm not able to
more.
hear the consultant.
Well, how about, can we move, since it's just us, can we move that closer? Would that help?
Yeah, we totally can, actually.
I'm not sure what you said.
That's okay. We're moving you, Mike.
And I'll try to project a little bit so that you can hear me.
Yeah.
The little
When I
microphone.
was there, I was using microphones and
Yes,
it's different as far as I remember.
all right, Brent, I have the documents, so if you want me to put them
Yep,
on
so
the screen.
do the fire life safety one. It's the third one to the right with the yellow. Yeah, sorry, my computer combined.
Yeah, and then if you share your screen, it will pop up on the Zoom call.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
There we go.
Well, this is, sorry, I don't know what to do right now.
That,
Go to the, expand that window.
Very tiny.
is it touchscreen?
No.
No, not this one. He's got a full screen.
Oh, okay, sorry, I'm super confused.
Do that, I should expand
Is this the one that you want?
Yep.
No,
Okay,
but if you go,
that's all right, I can,
yeah.
now I know what to do.
And I can actually stand up here so that Michael can hear me a little bit better, if that helps.
So it's the one with the yellow there?
Yep, that one there. Okay.
Mike, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that fine.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So these two pages here represent the conversation that I had with Bob Mitchell, city building official. Essentially what this boils down to is the usage that SEPRD will be inserting into the building, if you will, is different from which it was when a school, right? So from the building official standpoint, this is what's called an occupancy change, a change of use. This first page represents what the building department has on file. So you can see that the entire building is yellow with some of the corridors highlighted a light gray. You have some storage areas highlighted a darker gray. What this is trying to illustrate is that the entire school is an E occupancy, and you can kind of see the notes around the peripheral. Gymnasium, lockers, E, cafeteria, library, E, admin office spaces, occupancy, E. So essentially the whole building, the whole facility is an educational use of an E occupancy. The smaller numbers that you see littered throughout the plan are what we call the occupant load factor, right? So if you take that number and multiply it by the square footage, you get an occupant load. That's how many, square feet per occupant, right? So like in a storage room, it's 300. You take the square footage, you divide it by the 300, and that tells you how many people would be in that space. So you can see your storage areas are going to have a low occupancy versus like your your gymnasium area where it's a 15, right? So 15 divided into those 5,000 square feet or 14,000 square feet is going to give you a lot of people. Okay? So what I would do is I would calculate this and tell the building official, here is what the original use allowed for in terms of occupants. Now, if you go to the next page,
And this is for like the fire marshal.
it includes building department and fire marshal, yeah. And so Catherine asked if this included the fire marshal as well, and yes, it does. Now, when I met with the building department, I met with Bob Mitchell only. He spoke for the fire marshal and conveyed to me what the fire marshal wants to see in the building, and we'll cover that. But the second page, you'll see a lot more color in the plan, right? So now your yellow becomes this northeast corner, where the rest of the building becomes a green color and a brown color. The green and the brown are the new occupancies of those spaces, okay? So you can see the gym, the two gyms, the cafeteria, the library space, those are all brown, and they would be an A3 occupancy. So they would be considered assembly spaces, places in which people would gather with, loose chairs, fixed chairs in place and tables, a place where people are going to gather to either observe, view something, or play a game, or what it would be right inside of a typical gymnasium. The green is a B occupancy. So these are what we would call business spaces, business areas, based on the program SEPRD has. It looks like a lot, but it really isn't, right? This is purely a label in which we're saying, hey, it's an assembly space now versus an education space. But the building department wants to know that. It's a different label in the way you're using the building. Now the big rub here is you'll see in the green, you'll see some polka dot spaces, if you will. Those spaces are the ones of significance, right? So when I met with Bob Mitchell, I pointed out that these are the spaces in the building that I feel you will be using them differently than as if they were a school, right? So the use changes, which means the occupant load changes. Now, normally in this case, when we're dealing with occupancy changes, we end up telling the building department, you're going to have a lot more occupants in the building. That is not the case here. Right. You'll notice that those numbers grow. So, for example, the green bar to the east, to the left, that very first space is currently, I believe, it's a lab space, and it would be going to an instructional exercise fitness space. That occupant load increases to 50, which means you would ultimately have less people in those spaces. Now, when I conveyed this back to Bob, this really was a positive thing. He was shocked, right? Because he expected to have more usage, more people in the building. Really, you're not.
Well, schools, we cram as many kids
you do.
in the classroom as you can.
Rightfully so, right? We want all the instruction we can get. But here, this is a little bit different. But what this means is the way the building is designed for egress, getting people out of the building in the event of a fire, a catastrophe, a school shooter, right? The egress is sufficient to support the new use because your number of people in those spaces is going down, right? So this is a positive. This was a very encouraging thing with Bob. Basically, when we got to this point, Bob thought, all right, non-issue. All we need to do at this point is verify that some of the components of the building meet the current code, and I've highlighted the ones that don't, and then submit to Bob the change of occupancy. So I would be developing a set of documents that spells this out with a code summary, and then I would be highlighting the areas in which we would need to make modifications to the building. Okay? The things that I want to point out is in the drawing, you see a red dotted line. The red dotted line is a 1 hour fire separation. Okay? That wall is designed to withstand a fire up to an hour before the wall would actually become compromised.
And that's there currently?
That exists today for the most part in certain areas. Okay. Right? Now I've tried to highlight areas where we'll have to actually bring that fire-rated wall further through the building. What we ultimately have to do is separate the A3 from the B occupancy, right?
Okay.
So if you're looking at the green bar to the east on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see two red lines right after the daycare entry, new rated double doors. So that's something we would have to insert into the building, and where those double doors occur in plan, it has some flexibility in there. You'll notice that in the existing library area, where we call it extend the firewall and infill an existing opening, right? So most of that fire separation exists, but we'll have to continue the wall and then fill in the existing opening there. And you can fill in that opening in a couple different ways. You can insert fire-rated doors, or you just put in a framed wall. For everyone's understanding of a 1 hour fire-rated wall, it's a very low bar. It's very easy to achieve. You're looking at 2 layers of 5/8 inch gyp on either side of the wall. Now, most walls are constructed with a 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch layer of gyp. The difference is the rated version would have to be indicated as a type X. So the contractors have to be very careful. They have to make sure it's labeled type X. That gives you the 1 hour rating. But it's really a low bar, right?
Okay.
There is some cost in the doors and the hardware, the frames, all those have to go to 1 hour rated. So that's really the big cost, right? The other thing that I want to point out here is in the main gym.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
On that part? So in this section right here, do we have to
No.
make this wall?
No, because that is up against an outdoor space.
Outdoor space? Okay.
So that's technically not up against that different occupancy. Great question, though. But the other thing that I want to point out, that's an existing condition that we are going to have to modify. You see in the main gym, the 2 sets of double doors to the north. They're currently not wide enough to meet egress requirements. It's a metal door frame with 2 door leads. What we'll need to do is replace with a new door 1 lead that's wider so that you can actually meet the current code
So
requirements.
that's these here?
No, ma'am, that is these 2 here on the north.
Oh.
Yeah, those 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you were in the building, we put a tape on the wall, on the door. I think the doors are like a little under 26 inches. Doesn't get you there. You normally need a 3-foot wide door. So that's what we would do. The contractor that,
Do we have?
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, totally fine. Go ahead.
I'm following you pretty well. I've tried to get a question in, but I didn't manage my microphone well. On those corridors where we have to separate the green, we have to go to the A3 fire rating with the 1 hour wall. I understand that completely. I assume we also have to change the rating of the doors.
Yes, sir.
To a fire rated door.
Yep.
That would mean yield jams.
Door frame.
And fire rated door panels.
Yep, so your door frame, your door leaf itself would all have to change to indicate on the door that it's a 1 hour rated door. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, the nice thing
I've done a
is,
lot of,
yeah, I'm sure, yeah, it's very common, easy. It's you remove the existing frame and you put a new one in. There's really not a lot of modifying there. It's patch and repair, clean it up, make it look like you never touched it.
any windows into that corridor also have to be fire rated. If there was like wire reinforced glass, or the window frames would also have to be steel, would they not?
That is correct, yep. And the way they exist in the building now is they're all hollow metal frame. So that assembly, it'll be really easy to pull that off.
Is this gonna impact some of these suspended ceilings?
Correct. That wall, the new wall that you put in would have to go all the way up to the deck of the roof.
That's to be a dividing wall, the
Yep.
fire rated wall, separation.
Yep.
Above, all the plenum spaces need to be separated.
Correct. And any mechanical equipment going through there would have to have a rated louver in there. There's some modifications that, you're gonna be doing down the line with new systems in the building that would help negate some of that. So yeah, everything you're saying, Michael, is exactly correct.
I'm a retired general contractor, I've done a lot of commercial construction.
So you can read the drawings, you probably could have just handed these to me and let you do the presentation, to be honest. But you can see, down at the very bottom of the sheet, we've given the total area of change. It's about 15% of your floor area. So really, when I left the conversation with Bob, we left on good standing, He agreed 100%. It's really not as large of an issue as, you know, he was concerned with, right? Now he understands how you intend to use the building, how you are currently using the building, because this is how, in my mind, you are using it.
Yeah.
So now, the person that would be regulating the building and the building official all agree, so I think we have a path forward. Speaking to the fire marshal, so there were some modifications to the fire alarm system. If you look in the floor plan here,
This one?
yeah, no, this one's great, this has it. So if you look at the gymnasium cafeteria area, there is a small little fire alarm panel closet right off of the corridor. So just right of that outdoor courtyard, yep, Skylar's highlighting that. So basically what happened was all of the fire alarm controls got relocated to this one closet without any permit pulled from the city, right? At least nothing on file. Maybe the fire alarm subcontractor went out and did it, don't know. I've been in contact with them, they understand what they need to do to resolve this, so we're gonna retroactively permit that work.
Okay.
Now, what that does mean, though, is that the group that did the work, local group, will have to do a design drawing showing those changes, get it stamped by a professional, and then submit that. SEPRD would pay that fee, right, as if it was originally permitted, and then it's recorded, and then it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
So, in my mind, that gets us beyond the occupancy issue, beyond your building code debacle, if you will, okay? Yeah. And actually, it was a very good conversation with Bob, for what it's worth. You know, he mentioned that he's a short timer, and he's got some plans, and that there's some politics at play, and he's just trying to do what's right? And we both agree. Okay, so I'm gonna.
I like the fact that we're getting a path forward.
Yes.
Because
And
all of our plans for this building hinge on this.
Yeah,
Oh.
and it is very simple. This is very, very easy, very straightforward. These drawings, the two that you have, were the meeting notes that I sent back to Bob. He had me make some slight modifications, and then I sent it back to him and said, okay, this is the record. So
Okay.
then he's expecting a permit application that formalizes this.
Okay.
Yeah. And Skylar has given me the green light to give you guys a proposal to do that, so pretty much. Let's go to, so this next, yep, you got it. Okay, so that building occupancy, scope 1, this is scope 2. So scope 2, basically, what we did was, I pulled together, these are the original building drawings, I believe from, these show the 93 edition. And so,
I want to make sure, my thing said we were paused. And I clicked to Zoom, but, you see up there, it still says pause, so. Mike, can you see this blueprint on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I think it-
maybe it's working now.
Are we
It
recording?
could be
now?
larger, yeah, be nice.
Want to make sure that everybody
Can you enlarge that anyway?
Yeah, give me just a sec.
Sure.
Of course.
Recording in progress.
Oh, dang it.
We have it on the YouTube.
Okay.
Okay, you might, guide me around.
Yeah, no, this
Zoom
is
in
perfect.
closer.
So the next set of drawings we're gonna look at essentially take all of the due diligence packages that were provided to us and tries to combine them into one set of drawings that then a contractor can take and look at and give you a raw number, a rough order of magnitude. But here's what it's gonna take to address all these items, right? So those reports include an envelope study, it includes a building inspection, it includes an MEP assessment, it includes a structural assessment, a hazardous material assessment, so a very good due diligence package, all rolled into one. And so this first sheet, what it does is it tries to help identify the different ages of the building and the work that is needed with respect to those additions, right? So we all know that the original building was 1948, and that consisted of that first wing on the south of the plan, and then also the main cafeteria gym area, or excuse me, the main gym. In 1970, they added on the locker room areas, and in 1993, they added on kind of these other education wings, right? The early childhood area, the cafeteria, what will be the future rec area, and then the smaller gym off to the northwest. And so if you just kind of went around the planet clockwise, you can see each one of these notes summarize the work from the report. So the 1993 gymnasium exterior envelope, the existing concrete walls require some repair. Remove paint, repair cracks with backer rods and sealant. So we're going to button that up from a weather standpoint. We're going to paint with elastomeric coating, and we're going to inspect and replace metal-clad swing doors as required. And you can just kind of follow that around the building, right? So the 1970s locker room exterior envelope, remove all storefront window systems and replace with dual pane assembly. Provide new drainage pans, flashing, additional framing as required. Replace glazed swing doors in storefront. Inspect and replace metal-clad swing doors as required. Repair CME walls with cementitious coating. So we're going to skim coat those, clean it up a little bit. Clean, prep, and repaint with elastomeric coating, and then new exterior lighting, assuming that we're going to replace light for light. Where you have an exterior fixture, we're going to put a new one on. And I'm going to go quick through this, so stop me if you have any questions.
Nope.
So 1948, again, remove all the openings, fill them back in, flash them accordingly, inspect the doors, repair the concrete. This has some stucco infill that we'll want to remove it and replace with CMU. Again, coat that out so it all looks consistent, paint it back, and new exterior lighting. The 1993 early childhood exterior envelope. So remove the EPIS cladding. So if you have stucco cladding, you want to get that off. That's really not meant or intended for this climate. We're going to remove that to expose the wood sheeting, install new fluid applied weather barrier, continuous insulation, exterior rain screen system, and cladding, TBD. So basically, we're going to take the finish off the wall. We're going to bring it up to current energy code requirements. Right, we're going to make that wall robust from a thermal standpoint and put it back as if it was built brand new today. And then we also will, again, remove all the openings, fill them back in with new systems, flash them back accordingly, do new exterior lighting, and a new storefront with exterior door and full relight at each opening. We're not going to change any of those door sizes. We're just going to take what's there and plug back in new. And then same thing with the 1948 portion there on the south. Remove all the storefront windows, replace everything with new, flash them back in, inspect and replace the doors. We're going to repair the CME walls, coat them again, prep paint with elastomeric coating, and new lighting. Electrically, we're going to remove and replace the 19 federal specific equipment. So you have some really old controls in the building. Super cool stuff. I mean, you could actually make that in a little museum if you wanted. I had never seen that stuff in like actually working condition.
Wow.
So the MEP consultant that I brought, they were impressed. They were like kids in a candy shop. But we want to bring that up, so we're going to remove and replace distribution panel with smaller 600 amp wall mounted panel. Remove and replace transformers and feeder for a 208 volt 4-phase voltage system. Provide exterior lighting, and then new GFCI protection added to weight room. The weight room does have gets water rising with the tide, so anything in there, we want to make sure that it's protected.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do, Skylar. We're going to build a museum and charge admission to make money to replace it.
And pull it out and put it on the panel on the wall.
It'd be great.
Maybe put like a coin slot on it so you can put cents and then lights up and down something, you know? It could be cool. And then roof-wise, mechanical system, we're going to remove the multi-ply roof system, flashing and insulation. So you're going to take it down to the roof sheathing. Replace with a new SBS roof system. So an SBS is a modified roof system. It's built up. It's a little bit more robust for this climate. It will give you better protection over time. Provide new air vapor barriers, insulation, tapers, coverboard, and additional framing as required. So again, We're gonna put in a brand new roof, make sure it's bulletproof, it's waterproof, and it's something that you can easily maintain down the line. We're gonna remove and replace all RTU, so rooftop unit, assume like-for-like replacement. So we're gonna take the old units off their current curbs, put new ones down in place, and they would be at a similar capacity. We're gonna remove the indoor air handlers, replace with a VRV system, so a variable refrigerant volume system. That is the Cadillac state-of-the-art. It does have the higher cost up front, but it is the most economic. It's the most flexible in terms of modifying down the line. Basically, you have an exterior fan coil unit that looks like a box fan, and then it literally looks like a box fan. And then you have fan coil units inside the space, and you have refrigerant piping back and forth. Right. So if you can imagine, if you did this really awesome expansion of the building when we went 2 stories, you know, you could take that current system and just expand on it, right? Put new outdoor units, run new refrigerant lines, put new fan coil units in without ever having to modify the existing system.
Okay.
You can VE that down from there, but at least from a planning standpoint, that's probably where you want to start. Remove unit ventilators and heating.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
I'm sorry. So I just want clarification on that about the roofing. So I was following around like the, fire door requirements and all that, but the roofing specifications that you just listed.
Yes.
So I just want to be sure. So are these requirements in order to get occupancy, or are these sort of like?
No, that's a great question. Yeah, no, that is an excellent question. I'm glad you asked that. The occupancy change does not require any of this work. The way they look at an existing building like this, if you are opening up the wall, so if you tear open the wall and expose the insulation, then you are required to bring it up to conformance, right? So we're balancing 2 things here. We're balancing deferred maintenance, like we know the roofing, the membrane itself is gone, right? And so when you pull that membrane off and expose all the insulation, the fix, the repair, will be required to meet code requirements. So there's a little bit of a balance. If something is in place that doesn't need to be repaired or removed, and we can avoid opening up walls, then you don't need to bring it up to conformance. But I would tell you this, that with the amount of renovation and work, the way you want this building to perform, we're looking at it as if it's a 50 to 100-year building. You're not going to build this thing again new, and we want to get you a plan that gets the most for your money out of the gate. We will, again, have to balance some of that with what would be required by code. So this, again, is a full wholesale approach.
So Celeste, the first 2 pages that he was discussing is what we would have to do to get the occupancy, and now we've kind of moved on to how to preserve the building.
How to bring it up to a new rec center, if you will, without building a new rec center.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. In normal.
Can I make a comment, please?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Mike, hold on, I don't think,
I don't mean to interrupt. I'm going to bring this to Skylar's attention. I've decided to use my cell phone. I'm going to go into the meeting on the cell phone, and I will have audio to my hearing aids that way. And you may also have video of me. So I'm wondering if Skylar can do that. I'd be connected on my laptop and my cell phone.
Yeah, it shouldn't impact us. You should be able to use the same link through your cell phone, and you just would be logged in twice. So you would want to be in one of those.
I think I'm letting you in right now, so yeah, if you can.
I'm connecting now.
It might reduce the
So I
Zoom
heard.
to 45 minutes because there are more than 2 people.
Oh, we
Okay, I guess I'm in the meeting, so let's see how the sound goes.
Oh, there it is.
all right. Hi, Mike.
I don't know which one to mute.
You know, you unmute the other one. I think he just is using his.
Cell phone.
Yeah. I didn't hear an echo when he was talking.
Yeah.
I asked him to unmute.
Can you hear us, Mike? Mike, you're gonna need to unmute on your cell phone.
On your laptop, Mike.
On your computer.
Yeah, on your laptop, if you could hit the mute button to unmute yourself, then we'd be able to. There you go.
Oh, wait, solid?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Are you there, Mike?
Try that again, Mike, to unmute on the laptop.
Okay, it says I've got a mute button now.
We're good.
You're good now. You're good.
We hear you.
We hear you.
Celeste, did you have another part to your question?
No other questions on my end.
Okay.
Okay.
No.
So you can kind of follow those notes along. It's pretty consistent around the building. The takeaway is we want to bring it up to current code conformance.
With this plan, is there kind of a, I don't know, like a rating of like, we have to do this now, or this can be put off a few years, or?
I didn't take that approach.
Okay.
So what we had kind of talked about was, and when we move through the rest of the sheets, it'll probably make a little bit more sense. We'd like to get that raw number, right? What's the big picture
Right.
cost? And then let you guys pick yourself back up and put you in your seat, right? Because that's going to happen.
Uh-huh.
And then you work backwards.
Yeah.
Right? And together we work through that phasing, right?
Okay.
We said, hey, we got a 5, 10, 15-year plan, and then we figure out what is the best bang for your buck out of 5 years, so that the work down the line doesn't impact, you're not redoing things.
Right.
We do that all the time.
Yeah.
But we want to get the big picture first, check the temperature on the money situation, have
Okay.
escalation for, you know, if this gets deferred a year, 2 years, you can calculate what it costs. They tend to, and Mike, you can back me up on this, tend to get more expensive the longer you wait, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Cost.
So we want to do that analysis. Great question. Okay, so the next page, the next couple of pages, I don't know that I'm going to spend a whole lot of time on, but what they are is they are the enlarged plans for the building. And basically what we did is we went through each space and said, here's what we think you need to do to bring it up to a new condition, right? So if you, Tyler, if you go to the next PDF, no, this one, no, that's it right there. No. So you can see here, if you should have in this package 1, 2, 3, 4 enlarged plans that basically go around the entire building and say, here's what we're going to do in this quadrant, right? So in the notes, new architectural finishes throughout, remove all interior applied wall finishes. So anything that's acoustic panel, anything that's wallpaper, it's coming off. All existing casework to be replaced with new configuration to match P-lam throughout. So basically you have plastic laminate casework throughout the entire building. I feel we start there as a base level. And we tell the contractor, because we're not designing anything yet, right? It's going to be a like for like. So like for example, in this room, the 3 cabinets that you see there, the contractor's going to assume he's putting back those 3 cabinets, but they're brand new.
Right.
Right. New LED lighting throughout, including occupancy and daylighting switching. That's going to be all lighting now is LED. It's going to give you better controls. It's more efficient. It's just, you want to do that. You want to get rid of all the fluorescents on the building. All existing wood doors to be replaced with new wood doors. New doors to include hardware and security access controls. So anywhere where you have a dressed up wood door, we'll put it back. It will just be new. All existing metal doors to be refurbished for reuse. Hardware to be replaced with new and security access controls. Metal doors can get cleaned up fairly well. If they're not completely damaged, then we will dress them up, replace all the hardware so they close and open correctly, and that's kind of a compromise, right? Kind of a middle ground. All hollow metal door frames are to be inspected and refurbished as required. They're pretty robust elements that can take some abuse. For the most part, what I saw in the building, they're in good condition, so we just want to clean them up and paint them. New roller shade window coverings throughout each classroom and office space. So you may have a few spaces that we're not considering classroom or office that we're not going to put roller shades on, but as a baseline cost, anything classroom or office, you get the roller shade. All existing restroom space, granite polished concrete floors, new stainless steel water closet partitions, new plumbing fixtures throughout, new tile walls at labs, urinals, and toilets. new mirrors at last, new restroom accessories throughout, new paint throughout. So we're gonna clean up those spaces, bring in new fixtures. I'm saying tile at the wet walls. That's again to establish a baseline cost. You're not doing tile everywhere. You're just doing it at the wet areas where it would be, appropriate, and then you can VE back from that. A lot of times we see we can't get tile in certain restroom spaces. You do FRP panels, which is more of a utilitarian look. I've also seen epoxy paint used pretty regularly, and that kind of gets you there. We're going to remove the existing reception desk. We're going to repaint, replace carpeting throughout. We're going to do new ACT ceiling for classrooms. You can see we've indicated the new 1 hour wall with double doors, and just try to highlight work throughout. But really the takeaway is all new finishes, clean it up, minimize the amount of disturbance in the walls. We do have some new storefront going in the cafeteria, so separating that cafeteria space from the corridor, and then creating a new reception area at the early childhood entrance.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So the new storefront for the cafeteria, it's got the red line, is that part of the wall, the firewall?
No, it is not.
Okay.
That's purely just a dividing wall
Okay.
to separate the corridor from that space. Next page. The notes are very similar, probably consistent. Let's focus on the locker room area. So the typical shower room, we're going to remove the showers, refinish floors, replace ACT, and new lockers. So the old the gang style showers will go away and go back to locker rooms. And that's both men and women's side. We're going to grind and polish the floors, bring in new ACT ceilings and new lockers throughout. The weight room below the bleachers, refinish floor and stairs, patch and paint walls, paint ceiling. We're going to protect all the electrical outlets, and we're suggesting a new sump pump system in there to discharge any of that high rising water, so that it discharges to sewer or plumbing. We won't be doing away with it.
So the note to remove the bleachers and the sound podium, but I don't see that we're replacing the bleachers. Is that, are we not replacing the bleachers?
In the big gym?
Yeah.
I think the plan would be to eventually install, not install, but have metal bleachers that are collapsible and take up far less of a footprint. Yeah. And would maybe have, less room, but would still be adequate for what we need.
Let me get that in here, just because that is, there's some dollars there.
Yeah.
So you want to move that.
And you want to make sure you have that storage space, the ports
for
are,
the nice
yeah.
pocket. Great question. So, but in that same space, remove the bleachers, sound podium, paint walls, paint overhead structure, exposed roof and stage stones, clean it up. Refinish existing basketball flooring. If the flooring does not exist under the bleachers, extend that. And then we had talked about, striping for new courts, smaller court, full-size court, and pickleball.
Okay.
Next page, this is the future rec area, so that, what is that, the southwest quadrant. Again, all the notes are the same. We're going to clean everything up finish-wise. Restrooms will get all dolled up. In that storage area between the two fitness classrooms, we're going to do some new vinyl flooring, paint walls, new ACT ceiling, clean that up for more of a storage space. Staff was asking for space for sports equipment, so we try to incorporate some of that. The big thing that we're going to do here is you can see that classroom that comes right off that main entry. We're going to create 2 new offices with open workstations and new reception desks. That kind of becomes that front, that rec center. New carpet flooring, paint walls, new ACT ceiling. Now, I just said 2 offices. You may need a 3rd or 1 or 4, but that's a baseline question more for you all. And then some additional open office. So kind of get, some cubicles and some enclosed doors, if you will. Hallways, we're going to grind and polish existing concrete floors, paint walls, door frames, replace ceiling. The grind and polish existing floor, there's a lot of variation, and Michael, you could probably speak to that. That's a way we can kind of control costs.
For the grinding and polishing, for the asbestos issue in the floors, I know we like sealed them pretty well, but like,
And that's what that would do.
okay.
Yeah, you would take the tile off, remove the mastic, the grinding is gonna get all that stuff off, and then we would seal it back. The polish, you can use different levels of grit, if you will, different levels of sandpaper, and depending on how shiny you want it versus how matte finish and, something like that slick, we can control that grind and polish. The contractor will ask, how much grind and polish? Is it a marble floor that we're gonna create? No. We would do a low-level grit, probably 400, 600 grit, give it to where it's a clean surface, it has a little bit of a sheen, but it's not a slick surface at all. What we do in a lot of our operations maintenance facilities, and it's a happy medium, makes it easier to maintain as well. Yeah, and then you can see in the boiler room, that will want to rate that whole room if it's not already. A lot of that is concrete now, so you're almost there. That will be our mechanical room that we kind of use, so we'll want to separate that. So that's big picture, going around the entire building, look at cleaning up the envelope, the walls, the roof, and then coming through and doing some new finishes throughout. I will say there's lots of variations in the finishes, so the raw pricing that we're going to get is very high level. It probably will be like, $170, $250 a square foot. And we would have to work backwards over time for that. But I think where you were going to land is kind of in that mid-tier price range for planning, and then we want to focus on durability and maintenance from there. Okay. The next one that I want to be, the next couple sheets are kind of just diagrammatic to help orient everybody. The next one, Scott, that I have you bring up is a hazardous material diagram. That one, yeah, perfect. You're good. You're good. Sorry, I should have just combined all this video. It's okay. The rub on the hazardous materials, you don't have a lot. Actually, for the age of the building and everything in there, the assessment report doesn't show a whole lot. You have some existing white floor tile that needs to be.
The old middle school.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
I remember the layout.
You have abating some of the existing wall finish and paint. I think there's some stuff in there. You got brown floor tile and mastic, but you can kind of see the spaces that they exist in. It's not a whole lot, so fairly low. And this is based on that report that you guys, I don't know if it was your due diligence, or there was part of it, yeah, so that from September of 2020. So not a whole lot, a little bit of work there. Some education for you all, and Michael probably already knows this. The owners usually do the abatement, so you would hire a separate contractor to do that work.
That's
Specialty contractor.
actually not as bad as,
No, it's really not. I kind of thought there'd be a little bit more. But yeah, the assessment was pretty good, and we got lucky.
I mean, we knew it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Let's see, the next one that we want to talk about is the structural evaluation diagram. And it's right behind. So this probably comes as no surprise. The structural evaluation that was done really just kind of, it pointed to some shortcomings, if you will, of the original build, 1948. So you can see that southeast quadrant, and then the old gym and new gym. Essentially, the big, bold blue lines are existing concrete walls. Those walls, we want to repair any cracking. If you have significant cracking, you want to fill them with a back-rotted sealant, make sure they're fully weather tight. And then we want to understand the reinforcing that exists or doesn't exist in the wall. And the way we do that is ground penetrating radar. You hire a company that does that type of work, they come out, they scan that wall, they take pictures of it, and it's like an x-ray. They'll be able to tell you where the rebar is, what the pattern is, and get some idea maybe how big it is. So what we're saying is we need to, GPR explorations recommended to verify concrete wall enforcing, footing size, and reinforcing of the footing if possible. We need to upgrade that existing structure to conform with current building code. Improvements include new top of wall to roof connections, reinforcing of concrete walls. A lot of times that's a steel, tube steel, that's strong backing we call it. that runs, every 10 feet, it's a vertical steel column that they bolt, and that holds all the wall together. That's in lieu of any rebar or mesh in the wall. And then new concrete wall footings and foundations as required to improve the roof diaphragm. So a little bit of exploring on that old building. You will need to do that work. That work will be, required from a code standpoint. But again, it's limited to the original portion of the building.
Are we going to need to do any sort of piling or I don't know.
I don't think so. No, I think with the geotech report, the assessment, it would be spread footing that we would be putting in. So they would basically, they would be putting 4x4, 3x3 pad down that then the columns and everything bears on.
Okay.
The existing walls, if say you had footings every 20 feet, they would want to probably put in a strip footing to connect those things. But I don't think you're going to have to come in and put pin piles or anything like that in the ground. We would want to avoid that as much as possible.
Who knows what's under there?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
A quick question about the change. Obviously, you do have window openings. I have one of those walls. Were those going in with the waterproofing or because of structural issues? And could, away from in there, could windows be restored to the gym?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Michael. I would love to see those clear story windows back in, without really poking in a bunch of skylights overhead, which I wouldn't want to do out here. You could with re-roofing and all that, but I think those clear story windows are going to be a nice, touch. They're going to bring in some natural light. So I think we would want to maintain those as much as possible. And when you get into that design phase, actually designing the reinforcing and putting in the sizes for the footings, we would want to hold that as a criteria of the project, try to maintain that.
Yeah.
And in a quick glance, it's viable. I don't see many gymnastics that do that. Yeah.
That would be kind of a restoration point. We've really got a historical gym there.
Yeah.
And if it could lend itself to a restoration, I think it would be an interesting point for looking for the right grants. Actually look for a heritage grant to help fund that.
I think it's a great idea. I would implore you to do the same thing with the cafeteria. It's not as old. It doesn't have that fabric, that historic fabric, but I would want to maintain all that. Just kind of clean it up as much as you can. They're nice spaces. They have nice features, like I told you, the large blue lamps. The gym have the big trusses and stuff. Just kind of put all that stuff on display and use it as a part of the building aesthetic.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So that is all of the reports, all of the due diligence packaged into one. We've brought all this together and we've given it to a contractor to work on. He's asked for some additional information, which we're feeding him, but we're working towards that. I think hopefully that gives you a roadmap. This, along with the ROM pricing that you would get, is what you plan with.
Yeah. Can I, on this last picture, I haven't given it a whole lot of looking over, but
Oh, yeah, it's okay.
yeah, is this, so we'd be adding like an access road on the backside there?
Let me talk
parking?
Let me talk
Yeah.
you through that. So if you don't mind the site plan, and then timing wise, am I okay with it? Yeah. Okay. This will go really quick.
Of course, this whole thing could be impacted by the new field.
Go back, jump. And then if you go to the left, that first PDF, there you go. Yes, sir. There we go. Okay. So this is an updated revised site plan. We received some comments back from staff that then provoked this revision, if you will. Kind of the two main takeaways, the obvious is the access road around the north end of the building. We heard a couple things that we need more parking. We think you're going to be deficient on parking. and that's something from a code standpoint we'll have to address. But we need fire apparatus access, so you can see we've shown a fire truck pullout, we've got a hammerhead turnaround, and then we're showing that we have the hose radius to cover that portion of the building on the back side. We also heard that there's some area required for the goalpost storage, and I think you have that out there. The goalposts are odd because they're big things, and so you could lay them on the ground, or we could even try to figure out a place that they're installed upright, taking up less area.
Yeah.
So I didn't really label a whole lot. We did put a goalpost storage area adjacent to that small gym. If we utilized that area, they would want to be erect. We have a little bit of area adjacent to that hammerhead turnaround where they can lay down. And then same thing at the entrance of the access road at northwest corner. There's a little bit of ground there to store them. There's not a lot of good solutions around the goalpost. It's something we'd have to get creative, but we'll have places for them to land. The other things, oh, go ahead, yeah.
Not being a sports person, is there a reason they have to come down?
They're in the way of the baseball and softball field. If we didn't have the coexisting fields, they could stay up here.
Okay.
And that's a good point, because we've actually talked about just leaving them up and padding them and having the baseball and softball players play around them, which would be a fun
I
little
wonder
challenge,
if
but I don't
in
know if they
the
would.
redesign potentially of that field, if that's something that we could mention.
We've definitely brought it up as they're working through that.
Do you guys currently, you just let them on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we put them on like some kind of support beams to make sure they're not flush on the ground, but yeah.
They're right in
Yeah.
this spot.
And I could see an area where, you know, you put the post support in the ground, and they're up against the building.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
We could get clever, figure something out, but I think you have a solution there. The other thing that this plan shows to the south is a new loading drop-off area.
I'm in love with that.
Now this, I will tell you, this is a first quick swing. We're looking at turn radiuses and clearances. You want this all designed out by civil, right?
Yeah.
When we move into design phase, the civil consultant would help us with that. But we think you can get this turnaround, the loading drop-off, a portico share-like cover approach to it to dress it up a little bit. And then we're also showing the outdoor playground area off of the early childhood. That'll be required, you all know that. And we've shown it as far as we can go up to the property line. So that's why it's got that funky shape. But that is the primary update of this plan. Hi. So that's
Celeste.
Celeste, nice to see you. You were on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm keeping up. So that is everything.
Okay.
That's you know the rub of all of it. Next steps for me is to get an okay out of you all and Skylar to do the occupancy change. I owe Skylar that fee proposal. And then working with Codeville, both the contractors, to help produce the wrong pricing.
Okay.
Yep.
So, the first urgent step is getting that part.
The change of occupancy and the permitting of the fire alarm
Yeah.
modification.
So what's our timeline per se of those items?
I get some numbers.
Yeah? Okay.
And I think,
Then they have to be approved by which.
But that should be pretty quick. Bob's eager. He's asked his wife, hey, what's the update? And told him, I presented this, meeting with the board, trying to get some direction. Skylar's on board, initial swing was, this was acceptable. I can produce those documents within a couple of weeks if you say go. And then, what I would want to do with the fire alarm is just push that with them. Ultimately, they would control that time frame.
Yeah.
They already know, they're aware, ideally they're already working on it. We need to do that.
Yeah.
So that they keep their tail out of hot water. So yeah, a few weeks at most. And we've got the drawing laid out. Like, I've got a preliminary code summary. We did that initially just to kind of figure out what was needed to be done. I've got as-built plans built of this thing. So we're ready.
So then, the steps are, you do your part, fire people do their part, we get them to the city, they get approved by the city, then we need to do the work.
Right.
And then that needs to get, probably approved, checked, whatever.
It would be inspected.
Yep, that's the word that I'm looking for.
Yeah, no, your contractor would call for those inspections, they would do their final walkthrough, and you would get a full certificate of occupancy.
At the end of
At the end
the
of that.
changes,
Yeah.
okay?
And then you should not ever hear from them again, other than your annual walkthrough, and then if you did any kind of modification to that. But really, unless you see something different with the way you use the building big picture, we would want to capture that now, but really what I understand, and I think what SFA put in their packet, it all aligns.
Yeah.
I think we're close.
From my perspective, this is pretty much what we have been talking about, use-wise. Yeah.
Okay.
I need plus. Well, Mike,
Excuse me?
any thoughts on, are there any, changes or different thoughts on the use for the occupancy? Or does it look good?
I don't have any right now.
Okay.
A suggestion on my end, what I would suggest, because the occupancy part, I think, is squared away. I wouldn't expect you to comment much on that. But what I would expect you to kind of look at and comment on is the scoping document, each space. Is there something we want to highlight? Is there something we want to change? For example, like the offices in the rec area. Is that a thing? Just anything that would be high level cost implication, just getting your blessing on that stuff, I think would be good. And again, the wrong pricing is going to be a cost per square foot, so it's not going to give you a lot of detailed information, and it's going to have a lot of contingency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I had the document in front of me, I might have more comments.
Yeah, and I'm available if you have any questions. You can feed those through Skylar. If we need to do another group meeting huddle, by all means.
Well, I think this is a great presentation. I appreciate you walking us through it.
Yeah.
Really.
Sorry it's not,
When you-
nothing flashy, but,
When you look at it, not being a contractor, there's a lot of information on here, so, yeah. That was great.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of it is really just bringing the envelope up to where you have a dry, airtight building that you can condition and work in without any concern.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of holes in it, and you can kind of see that walking around.
Yeah.
Get water in it. So that's gonna be the big rub.
I think, your original, get the big picture, and then, we're gonna have to start kind of okay, 5-year, 10-year, 15-year,
Yeah.
and try not to redo things as we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of that, I think one of the discussions originally was, I don't know whether this was discussed, but we talked about a phase plan. And have you thought of that yet, or is that part
No.
of sort of what's next? We said, oh,
I
we're
think
looking
that
at.
would be next.
Okay.
Let's get the let's get your code stuff
Yeah.
resolved, so you get that certificate in hand.
Mhm.
And then once we have the wrong pricing and you understand, okay, what is the magnitude of this,
Mhm.
then you would want to work backwards.
Okay.
If this was $10 million, right, I'd be looking for you to go, can you do $10 million?
Right.
When can you do $10
Right.
million? And if you waited 5 years to do this, what is that $10 million teach you?
Yeah.
And then again, work backwards and plan from there. The finishes, in my mind, are things you guys can phase out.
Mhm.
Doing all of the row, if a contractor's gonna come in and tell you it's gonna be way more efficient to do it all at once and have them go through it. Same thing with making up the envelope and the windows. You do it all at once and wholesale it, you're gonna be more efficient with your costs.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, it was a pleasure. Skylar, anything else? I missed anything?
Thanks, Brandon.
Okay.
Appreciate your
Yeah,
time.
really.
Yes. I can leave a few cards too, Skylar. I don't know if that's of use to anybody.
Yeah.
Maybe a few extra, just in
This
case.
is the highway,
No, I know that, but about that, see how it's a little section?
Anybody wants them?
probably the right of way.
Those. Cool colors.
Oh, you just like the double one
Yeah.
here? I don't know.
What do you say?
the line here and the line here, and it's just,
It's probably the, so there's,
Maybe
this
Brandon.
green
Yeah.
space is put out right away, and
Right.
then this next strip.
This strip
is included
in the,
Oh, it's an easement.
Oh, it is neat.
Yeah, there's an easement there.
Okay,
So your property line is out here,
right.
right? But you have this easement. I can,
Gotcha.
I'd have to look on the, GIS to tell you what it is, which I can do that. That's most
That's
likely.
okay, okay.
It gets put out.
ODOT or, is there any high voltage transmission?
There is in a different part of the property, it's over by the dog park.
Okay, yeah, that's
I don't think it goes through that.
Yeah, you're probably right, probably ODOT or maybe even something underground. Okay, I'll leave you these extra packets for
Thank you.
fun, and then I'm just gonna shut down and get out of here.
okay, I'm gonna give you your pen back.
If you want it, you can have it.
Thank you.
I can't tell you how many pins we have in the office.
We're gonna move on to board comment really fast, let's go.
This is super exciting to see, like, to see some concrete plans out, so, thank you for your great work on that.
Yeah, thank you. Mike, board comment.
I have no further comment. I sure appreciate the professional, approach to the presentation and all of the thoughtful, issues that have been, approached. I'm glad things are moving along, and we just need to find a pot of money, that's all.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. For my comment, I just want to say I appreciate your time and coming out, and this was really helpful to walk through, so thank you so much.
We're excited to work on it, it's a great project.
Yeah.
It's a
No,
long-term project,
it
but,
is.
yeah, it's great.
I grew up next to an old school turned into a community center when I was a kid, and it's still there being as a community center, so that's my vision for this long term, so.
We're happy to help you get it there.
Thank you. All right, this meeting is adjourned. We'll take a 1-minute quick break, if anybody needs a break.
Okay, Mike, we're gonna, end this meeting, and then, you'll need to join on the board meeting link, okay?
Brandon, I think there should be a.
Yes, I will,
Have a view to
I will sign in with my computer, I will
Still
sign in
dreaming.
with my computer and my phone.
Okay, I'll watch for you.
The audio works a lot better for me.
Outside and touch
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Okay, election of the officers of the board. We're the officers of the board. I'm fine staying chair unless anybody else wants to step up. No?
I think it's great.
Okay.
I'll stay vice chair. I'm happy to stay in the same position.
Mike, you want to stay secretary?
Well, I'd be happy to step down from secretary, and, if someone else would like to be secretary, I would nominate, Sue Connington.
Can we nominate her if she's not here?
Well, there you go.
I'm sure Sue would be fine with being secretary. Do we need to vote on all the other positions? Or
You can do one full.
Okay,
One full slate.
okay, go for it.
So I move that we, to adopt a slate of candidates with Catherine as remaining as chair, myself remaining as vice chair, and Sue Coddington remaining, stepping in as secretary.
Mike, you have to second.
Excuse me?
You have to second.
I moved to adopt the slate.
I was trying to connect. I have to second. I will second that.
All in favor, signify aye, opposed nay. Celeste?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, declaration of potential conflict of interest. Celeste?
No, well, yes, actually, I would like to just declare, be completely transparent that, the organization that I run, Foster Club, is, contracting with Park and Rec District to hold a youth conference on the premises, so I just want to be transparent and let that be known. But we're paying full fees and not asking for any special accommodation, but I will say that the staff have been fantastic in helping us plan an event that we're really excited for, that will serve about 70 young people in foster care.
Fabulous. Mike, any conflict of interest?
I don't believe I do.
Okay, no conflict for myself. Public comment. Go ahead, Marty.
Takes me a while to get up these days, no, I'm good.
There you go.
Well,
Got 3 minutes.
okay, I'm speaking on behalf of the people who use the hot tub. We've been going around in circles for months, asking staff, everyone you ask has a different answer. The hot tub was operating from January until early July without the jets, but it was operating. July 8th, there was a fecal incident, and the hot tub has been closed since that time. We're coming up on 4 weeks. I know we're waiting until the fall for the parts for the jets, but I'm wondering why the hot tub isn't back and running anyway without the jets.
Okay.
So, we can get a response, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my understanding, and Skylar, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's a national shortage on chlorine, and that to take care of the hot tub, and that the priority has been placed to reserve the short supply that we have to keep the pools up and running, and that's just been a priority choice that has had to be made.
Okay.
So that's my understanding.
Okay, I'm just wondering why somebody couldn't tell us that.
Yeah.
Different people keep, every time you ask different people, first it's the parts. Well, we understand the parts aren't coming until the fall for the jets. But then you ask somebody else and it was chlorine. And so that way I can report back to the gals that it's going to be a while because there's no chlorine.
So noted, we can take into account perhaps how communication could be improved.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
Was there any other people online?
Only other
or-
people are Michael and RJ, so
Okay.
there's no public comment from the online folks.
I'm assuming RJ doesn't want to make public comment.
I don't think that's his
No,
purpose.
no, I don't need to, thank you.
Actually, I have a quick logistical question.
Here I am.
Hi, RJ.
you are.
Good to see you.
Yeah, but I will just be quiet and listen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. Aren't you supposed to have a certain number of board members?
Three of 5. So we
That's what
have
I
one
thought.
mic online.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Call it a quorum as long as we have the majority.
Exactly.
Okay, correspondence, I did not see any additional correspondence in the packet unless I was mistaken. Did we have anything?
Recording in progress.
Sorry, just wanted to start that.
Yep,
No correspondence.
okay.
In this month's packet.
Moving right along. Recognition of the SEPRD Employee of the Month, Mark Buffington. Did I say that right?
You did?
Buffington? There's no G. Who is not present, but we will say that he is, Mark works in our maintenance department, keeping our outdoor spaces, fields, and natural areas beautiful and maintained. He is fairly new to SEPRD and has already had a huge impact through his hard work on our facilities and maintenance team. Mark comes to SEPRD with many years of landscaping experience and a drive to succeed. He has adapted well to the many different tasks that fall under his purview as field and ground maintenance. And Levi is the one who nominated him and says, welcome aboard and congratulations, Mark. So thank you so much, Mark. We have a certificate and a gift card for you. Approval of board meeting minutes from June 28th. There was one tiny little change. There was an extra apostrophe, comma, whatever.
Sorry. You corrected.
I know.
Yeah, between Darren and Gooch.
But other than that, they look good to me. Anybody else have any?
You'll have to forgive me, I was not here. I tried to put it together based on the notes in the YouTube stream, and I think I did okay.
I
but
think
if
you did pretty well.
Adjustments, yeah.
No, yeah, I thought you did pretty well.
Sounds like it was a very efficient meeting.
Well, yes, 6:36. We're gonna shoot for that today.
Can you hear me? I thought the minutes looked pretty good, and
Perfect.
I moved that we accept the minutes.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll second.
Thank you, Celeste. All in favor signify aye, opposed nay. Celeste?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you so much. Review of the financials from June of 2022.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why this made it all small.
Hey, Adam, can you help Skylar?
Yes, please. My Zoom got really small. I don't know why.
While they're fixing that, did Mike and Celeste, did you guys have a chance to review the financials?
Yes, I did. I had talked with Skylar today and asked him about the $136,000 thing, and as I suspected, I was correct with Zion Bank being our mortgage holder.
Yep.
For the SRC, and that was one of my big questions. And I would move with.
Sorry.
Hold on, Mike.
Now I can plug that back in.
Hello?
We're here. They're having some technical difficulties on this side. So give us just a second, Mike.
Well, I'm on guard about any difficulties because I'm so remote.
We're just happy you're here, Mike.
Well, thank you. Looks like we needed a quorum. Where is everybody else?
Erica is under the weather, and Sue is with her mother, who is under the weather.
No. Well, there's COVID going around. I know there's issues.
That's fine. Let's just roll like that. It's okay.
Okay, so Mike, you made a motion. Do you want to repeat your motion?
To approve I move that we approve the financials for June, the first date range, I'm looking at June of 2022, which would conclude the fiscal year. It looks pretty good.
Oh, hold on, Celeste
I
has a
know there's
question.
some,
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so I have some questions. So, I'm just wondering on revenue projections, I see that we are almost 100,000 shy on taxes for fiscal year to date than we projected.
Mm-hmm.
And do we think that's accurate? Excuse me. I guess that would be my first question.
Yeah, I think it certainly was accurate as of the end of June 30th. I know we had at least 3 or 4 smaller amounts of tax revenue trickle in early in July. So it's possible that number might creep a little more north.
Okay.
But probably, at least from the figures I saw, not all the way up to the projected.
Okay. And then my next question has to do with, and I'm going to have to look back at my notes, and I apologize that I didn't have this, but you may just know these answers off the top of your head. I believe our building fund annual budget, that projection came from a transfer that we expected to have from our overage, so I believe that's where that 279 came
Correct.
from. But a transfer isn't showing on this balance sheet
Yeah,
that's coming in.
So I think Darren explained part of this situation to the board when you adopted the budget. But
okay.
Part of that transfer isn't going to happen. We're going to make a smaller transfer, and that was to kind of have a healthier carryover going into the next fiscal year. So
Okay.
because we haven't made any of the transfer, it's not showing up here, but we can go back and...
It'll be like a journal entry or
Yeah.
something like that, okay. And is that, and for the Sunset Rec Center, I assume that the bulk of the 65 that's there is our lease?
Correct. Well, yes. Yeah, I would say the lease, rental revenue, from other things, yes.
Okay. And I just can't recall how we got to the number of 203 originally in our budget from last year. My memory's not that great, so.
That is a great question. I don't want to say, because I don't think I even have an educated guess right now, but I can look into that.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because the shortfall leaves us at a deficit for the year,
Yeah.
and looking at how, and I know that we had healthy carryover last year,
Yeah.
and I know that we anticipated some of that, but we're going to need to pay attention to that.
Okay.
that is a good question, Celeste.
Yeah, let me look into that stuff. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, you're good. The other thing I do think that will be helpful, and I think you did this last time, Skylar, but I'm noticing that one of the line items I think that is where our actuals are outpacing our budget regularly is in staffing costs, and I think this ties back to that conversation where I think it's nice to actually see the staffing costs as a separate line item, to be able to see where that's happening, what's happening where.
The positions, that's what you're referring to?
Not necessarily. I like it even in this format, how we have it. I mean, I think it would be nice to see a rollout at the bottom that just says all staffing, right, that pulls all staffing together.
Yeah.
But I recognize that this has been an exceptionally tough year to attract and maintain staff, and so I'm all for making the investments in our staff. But I think as a board, for us to manage our fiduciary responsibilities, it's important for us to see if we're exceeding projections, why that is and where that's happening. Yeah.
It looks like, yeah, of the 7 staffing budget areas, 5 of them are over budget, 2
Right.
are under, and small amounts under, so.
Right.
Yeah, that would be good to extract and
Have a roll up at the end so that we can see.
Yeah.
And I think it would probably help your team.
Yeah. Okay.
sorry, and one more addendum to that.
No.
Because I also think that it might be important to go back and revisit because of the budgeting process and running off, like, just to make sure that our budgeting process for next year,
Oh, yeah.
right, takes into account extra staffing costs.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that we did that, but I think a double check, especially looking at these figures, would be good.
Okay. Mike, do you want to reintroduce your motion?
Excuse me?
Do you want to reintroduce your motion to adopt the,
I can reintroduce a motion I made to approve the financials for June 2022.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll second?
Thank you, Celeste. All in favor signify aye, opposed nay. Celeste?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Old business, fee review. So we discussed this at our last meeting. It's in the packet. We didn't number the pages. Anyway, after the financial. Any further discussion on the proposed fee review policy?
I just have a question about, if there has
These
been...
changes are for out of district.
Hey, Mike, hold on. Celeste had a
Oh,
question.
that's okay.
No, go for it.
Has there been feedback from staff or who else has looked at this at this point, Skylar, and have you had any kind of feedback?
Just the feedback from staff would be, the bulk of questions has been about the discontinuation of the punch passes for the out of district. And it hasn't necessarily been strong pushback, but just how are we going to message this to those folks that have traditionally utilized those punch passes. So I think we have a couple of thoughts on how to share that information out and kind of communicate it effectively. But that's been the only other thing. I think staff at least feel strongly in support of this change and happy about it.
And that was in, part of, so we discussed it last meeting, were you present last meeting?
No.
Yeah, so we discussed it last meeting, so it's part of the public record.
Yeah, great.
Just to kind of, provide that visibility on it. This is the third month it's been in the packet on the agenda, so.
Great.
Mike, go ahead. You had a question or a comment?
No, I was just going over these are out of district fee changes, and I understand this pretty well. It looks pretty good. I would move that we approve resolution 2021-08, be it hereby adopted that the SEPRD Board of Directors adopts the proposed fee schedule with changes suggested to be implemented on or around September 6, 2022.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll second.
Thank you, Celeste. All in favor signify aye, opposed nay. Celeste?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. I like how you just assumed that I was still going to be present.
I didn't know what do you put?
I don't know.
Incoming president?
Okay. Moving right along, Broadway Field update.
So I don't have much of an update to share right now. We're still in a little bit of a holding pattern, but what I can share is I think there's some dates coming up that are going to be important for this discussion. On Thursday, August 4th, which is a week from 2 days from now, 9 days from now, City of Seaside Parks Committee is hosting their Parks Master Plan Update Workshop, open house type meeting here at the Bob Chisholm, and they are looking to gather feedback about all of the existing City of Seaside parks. At that same evening, possibly in conjunction with that meeting, the school district is going to be sharing a message about the proposed changes to Broadway Field, gathering community input. And so the district is not, school district, or the park district, sorry, is not necessarily involved in that presentation, but we'll be here helping facilitate a conversation to happen. And I think that's one of the things that the city council requested of the school district when they presented this plan to city council in middle of June. from what I can tell, all of the discussions have paused until some of that feedback is received or that presentation has occurred. But I still think once that presentation has occurred and kind of those approvals are gathered, if they are gathered, the plan will need to move quickly after that, so.
I know that you sent out an email with that meeting, but what time is the meeting?
So I know the parks open house is at 6. I don't know how the school's presentation, if that's going to be before or after. I know there's some negotiation by those parties about how to factor that in. I'm assuming that will probably be in this room, because the parks open house is intended to be in the main hall.
Okay.
So I'm not on the planning committee for it, but I anticipate that's what's going to happen. And I would encourage the public and the board to come or see if they can participate in some way, because I think the school district is looking for that feedback about these changes and how it will affect the park, and hearing concerns, if there are any, from the residents.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Northwest Regional Education Service District contract. We finally got
Oh my
an
gosh.
updated one.
I just realized I put Northwest Regional ESD, but I should have put Northwest
Oh,
Senior
yes, you
Disability
did.
Services.
And I said it, you didn't
I'm
right?
sorry.
That's okay.
That didn't sound right when you were saying it. I was like, oh man, that's my. Yeah, I get these two acronyms mixed up all the time when I'm typing for whatever reason. They're very close together in my mind. So this is the meal site contract. The board reviewed it. I want to say that was in April, and we found some inconsistencies, as well as they didn't apply an increase. So they've retooled this and given us, I believe, a 4% contractual total increase, and seems adequate right now. I would have preferred a tiny bit more, but other than that,
for 1 year, correct?
Yes, correct. Other than that, the contract has met the approval of staff, and
Okay.
even though we're past July 1st, we've still been providing the meal service, and things are going well on that front.
Has everybody had a chance to look this over? I know Skylar had sent it out via email when we received it.
No, I guess I would have a question, maybe not for this, it's fine if it's not for this year, but looking towards the future, do we have any idea what our programmatic costs are to administer this?
We do.
We do,
Yeah.
okay.
I probably couldn't share it, but when we took over the meal site contract, probably 3 to 4 years ago now, we kind of worked out a budget, and that budget has actually held pretty consistent.
Okay.
Our costs are pretty low. What we are essentially providing is the staff person is employed by the district, but most of the other costs are facility costs, which are incurred by the city, because this is a city building, or by the Northwest Senior Disability Services. They manage the actual food provision and all those agreements, so that's managed by them, so we don't have to worry about too much of it.
Okay.
So just that employee.
But even with the increased staffing costs,
Yeah, that's why we asked for the increase,
Okay.
and got most of it, not all of what we asked for.
Okay.
In a better spot now than we were the first iteration of this contract.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions, Mike?
No, I have no further questions.
We have a motion to accept.
I move that we accept the site management agreement with the Northwest Senior Disability Services.
Thank you, Celeste. Mike, you want a second?
I will second that.
Thank you,
I will
Mike.
second that motion.
All in favor, signify aye. Opposed, nay. Celeste?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you for your work on that, Skylar, getting that fixed. New business. There's a letter from Skylar regarding potential childcare expansion. Looks like we got a $50,000 grant from Roundhouse Community Foundation and Northwest Regional, I got this one right, Northwest Regional Education Service District.
So yeah, 30,000 from Roundhouse and 20 from the ESD, which is great.
So to offer infant and child care, which I'm all on board for because there is a significant need in this community for that. It's, I think you said 9 total spots. does this 50,000, like, how much of the 9 total spots, what does that, how much does that get us, I guess, for,
Yeah.
towards those 9 total spots?
Sure, it depends on how we allocate those funds. There is some flexibility in the funding, but we estimate that we need around $15,000 to $20,000 of equipment and other expenses to change the room, the physical space where these programs will be held. And then what we were hoping to use the other portion of the funds and continued funds would be to hire staff and to cover the bulk or all of those staff wages for the first part of this program, with the hope that either we secure long-term funding for it, you know, get additional grants, or that as time goes on, those new programs are kind of folded into the district's youth programs. And as you know, and we've had lots of conversations about this, the youth programs, I mean, they operate at a pretty significant loss, but that's not necessarily the purpose for the program. But adding something new on top of it, we wanted to make sure that, that we had community support for it, and we believe that there's a lot of agencies and organizations that want to partner with us, offer granting funds for that, and B, ensure our district residents that we're not taking money from this pot and putting it to this new program, when obviously there's always other things that we can use those funds on. So that was kind of the perspective that we had. We also, from a personal perspective, and I know you both probably identify with this as well, I think our community needs good news to celebrate, and having this, finding agencies like Providence hopefully will be a big part of this, and other granting agencies, the ESD and Roundhouse, to champion and just say that this is because of their great support. I think is a really strong message to send, that it was because of those folks that we are able to do this.
And I also think if the news gets spread by really nice reporters, that this is something that we can bring back to our community, because there is none. I mean, there's no infant child care anywhere in our county. So being able to say that is something positive for our community, to be able to say we're supporting these families that are going to work in our community. And
so I know due to my heavy workload currently in my day job, have not been able to talk to the grant writer yet, and I do hope to be able to connect with this. And I don't know if this falls to the grant writer or to you, Skylar, but I am hoping that we can do some sort of environmental scan of how other entities support or pull in different funding streams to support, because I don't think it's either grant funding or fee-for-service to patrons. I think there are also perhaps federal funds that are available, or other state governmental funds. I think don't we get some state funds?
We have before, yeah, and we're getting a healthy amount of state funds that aren't necessarily for this specific program, but are for other programs within youth programs.
So I think we should look at that, particularly considering the income level that a lot of our citizens are at, and that we may qualify to. So I think looking at a braided funding strategy, where we're bringing in money from different locations to braid it together. And my hope is that this can be a significant piece that we concentrate on for resource development, for grant writing. The other thing that I'm hoping, and again, happy to support if I can, but I think we need to look at, when we're pulling in grants, not just divvying up. I mean, when we think about a grant like $50,000 as a pie, you know, there are hard costs like equipment or staff costs, but we also should be factoring in operational overhead costs to support the administration of that grant. That's completely acceptable to most funders.
Yes.
And what it does then is gives you more room in your overall budget.
Yeah.
So I think we need to look at that and be presenting our grant proposals in that way.
I think it's really good.
Yeah.
Good feedback, thank you.
I have some questions.
Go ahead, Mike.
Sorry. So, is the initiation of this program, this expansion for infant care, we've got $50,000. Is it contingent on getting additional funding before we can afford to go forward? And then secondly, if this grant funding, when it runs out, does that mean infant care will go away? We have to have a sustainable program. And I'm thinking, because of our demands on our programs with scholarships and financial aid, I'm thinking that this program, maybe it should be in district only. What do you think?
I do think prioritizing slots to in district, and I'm not sure if how we do that currently, because I think that's an important distinction, because once again, we're paying for the subsidizing some of this.
And especially considering
That's
that there's
true.
only gonna be 9.
You know, I assume that we prioritize in-district slots for, childcare and preschools as well. But anyway, that's my thought on that. I know that when we got, a few years ago, we got $250,000 from OCF to expand our after-school program and, enrolled into some summer camps. And when the money ran out, the staffing went away, the director of the program went away, and we had no program. So it's important that once we get this started, that we find that we make it affordable and then we make it sustainable.
Yeah, I think
That's
that's a
my
really good
thought.
point, yeah. One of the,
Although I'm in favor of approving it, I want to make sure that we have the funding in place to move forward.
sure. I think one of the differences, I guess, in that funding, for that model that we used for that program, was that this program is almost already, as soon as we click open on the registration, we're going to have full registration. We have that many, even just families that are already using our programs that have infants or toddlers that want to utilize the program. And I guess the other benefit that we have now is that we have this wonderful dedicated large space that can accommodate, we have a classroom or two right now that are dark, that we're kind of just been waiting to hopefully host these programs in when the time is right. So I think, the timing is kind of everything was lining up almost perfectly with just like a couple of these granting agencies won't make their decision for another few weeks. But I do feel confident in actually both of them. I think we've established a great relationship with Oregon Community Foundation, OCF, that's one that Mike mentioned, and we've had a couple of follow-up interactions with them after their grant application that have been positive. And then the Providence funding is being combined with ARPA funds from Clatsop County and Columbia Memorial Hospital, and I think we'll be able to submit a strong application for some of those funds to be used for this too. And they're kind of basing their awarding of the funds on some criteria that really fit nicely with what we want to do. Expansion of service, offering higher wages to our staff, and those types of things, so.
Thank you.
I'm kind of wondering, would it be possible to put together kind of not necessarily like a budget, but just like a budget for what we foresee this program would cost us to operate for a year, and staffing, the hard cost of purchasing the supplies and stuff, we can assume that that's going to come out of the money that we already received, but just the ongoing stuff.
So I think that was included in the budget that was adopted, but it wasn't broken down probably in the detail that maybe I think you're hoping for. So, and we have that obviously because we had to build that budget to kind of apply for some of these grants and to put it in the district budget. So we could maybe do something next month or show that, or I can try to share that out before then to you.
I just would, because I know particularly for this age group, the staffing levels are much higher per child, so that's a significant cost. But then just are we providing diapers? Are we providing are those things that
One of the other pieces of this that lines up nicely, just that I think has helped us, is this wonderful person that we hired, Erin. She did all of this in Astoria. She kind of started their Little Sprouts program, which was really popular, and they were serving 20 to 30 infants and toddlers. And so she has kind of that knowledge base and understanding of how to run the program. I've asked her lots of questions about diapers and food and pickups and, you know, infants and toddlers. Their needs are very specific and they're different than preschoolers for sure.
Yeah.
You guys know that, but sometimes I forget that because I'm, yeah. Anyways, so yeah, some of those questions. Maybe it would be great to have Aaron and Justin maybe come and share some information in August.
Yeah,
As a short presentation.
that would be great.
I think,
I mean, the small amount of board members that are here, I think we're in favor of moving that direction. I think just kind of ironing out how that's going to work would be, yeah.
so you're, I want to just make sure, like, I know my direction. You're okay with us opening up registration, starting to maybe make some purchases for this program and bringing a budget and some other details back to you in August? Or am I putting cart before the horse?
Well, I mean, we've secured the 50,000, right? And is the ESD 20,000 already secured?
Yeah, so Roundhouse was 30, ESD was 20. So
Oh,
50
50 altogether, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
We also have the money, I mean, we had a line item budget, you know, for this, of our own funds. That
I mean, in a sense, we're doing sort of a 6-month pilot or something like that, right? To see if we can get some. So I suppose the way I would suggest that we treat a pilot is that we're a little bit conservative on our startup investment, right? Until we, because I think it's going to be appealing to funders that we pilot, show community interest through the sign-up action, and to show that we have 50 people asking for the 9 slots, right?
Yeah.
And then we can move into a full implementation stage, and that's an opportunity to go out for a whole new round of funding. And to cite what you need, right? Like, instead of projecting what you need for an ongoing program, like, so I guess I would tend to try to be conservative, given that this is the amount of funds, and then begin planning for stage 2.
Okay.
And I would communicate that with families.
Yeah,
so
exactly. For
make sure that they know we're piloting this.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopeful that,
Okay.
I think funders tend to be particularly excited about buying a thing for a program, right? Buying that stuff. So as much as possible, when you have flexible funds like this, I would like to reserve them for ongoing staff costs, because that's usually a little bit harder to get, but it's easy to say we need $6,000 for crib, playpens, whatever. Like, those are things that funders tend to, are very concrete, and funders like to purchase.
I like the pilot idea and kind of branding that the right way or marketing that the right way. Would you be comfortable with a 9 or 12-month pilot? And I ask because 6 months puts us, you know, if we start in September, October, November, December, so February, which is kind of it's sort of an odd time to consider discontinuing a program if that were the decision that we would have to make. Whereas if we do 9 months, it kind of lines up better with the school year. So anyways.
Yeah. I mean, so when I look at it from a board member and our fiduciary responsibilities, and this might be what you're looking at as a budget, what I want to know is how much non-designated funding. So how much are we pulling out of our general operating costs that we have to use to offset the cost of this program? And it's hard to say yes or no, because I don't know how much we're being asked to designate. So we have $50,000 of committed funding out of
what's the, and, you know, yes, that was rolled into the youth program budget, but that's like you know, how much of that?
And so, in general, I think just to be able to, it's hard to say yes or, I mean, yes, theoretically, I think we're all behind this expansion program. I mean, I think I've been verbal about that piece. Yeah. But to do our fiduciary duty, we need to know what we're spending to be.
And you know, if it works out, I could definitely see a 9-month pilot, you know, to line up with the school year. And
maybe we don't put a timeline on the pilot. We just say that it's a pilot.
It's a pilot. Yeah, you could say that.
We're committed to doing it as long as it's mutually feasible.
Right.
For us.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
I just And do we feel like, is staff ready to open registration? Like, is this a thing that staff is looking to do, or like?
Yeah, so I think staff is very excited about this program. There's really three things that need to happen, and we're kind of waiting until this meeting to sort of make sure that we're moving in harmony with the board's wishes. There's the hiring of employees, which we feel pretty confident about, and we're kind of marketing the opportunity at a higher wage because the special, circumstances. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So that's one piece. The second piece would be preparing the rooms, and getting the necessary implements, tools, and things that we need. And then the third thing was just filling registration. I think that will be the easiest thing.
Yeah. For the rooms and things, not really knowing, but we have to be there's special things,
kind of
some sort of certification to do this.
So it's the same, we'd be under the same kind of scenario that we are now, and that we aren't required, because we're a government agency, to be a license. But we do have to do other things to make sure that our site is, safe, providing the structure and those things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have all those relationships made with folks, with the Early Learning Hub and with the ESD folks and
Aaron's expertise.
Aaron's expertise with the fire department. I mean, there's life safety things that need to be considered as well. So.
Okay.
I think I would really, particularly since our staff has so much expertise in this area, I think one of the things that I've found is that sometimes staff see a number like $50,000 to put towards a program, and it seems a lot, and it's like, oh, well, we can spend all that to do X, Y, Z, without realizing how many costs are actually sort of hidden costs, including administrative and overhead costs are hidden in what we need to do a program like this.
Yeah.
And so, to the extent possible, I'd like to see, and maybe you're already doing this with the grant writer, but what do we need to gear up, and how quickly can we then start doing quick ask kind of grant writing for those kind of concrete things that are sparkly, that are going to be attractive to small community foundations, or even community organizations, even like Kiwanis or Rotary or something like that. Like those are quick asks for certain things.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think phrasing it as a pilot and then not putting a date on it is the way to go for now.
Okay.
So I move that the board support this effort to pilot expansion to, what are we calling it? Infant and child care?
Infant and toddler.
Infant and toddler care.
Mike, do you want a second?
I will second that.
Thank you. All in favor signify aye, opposed nay. Celeste?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Skylar.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Jacqueline?
Yeah.
Madam President, I would like to consider the remaining agenda. I have some time constraints. I'm going to hit the wall where I am at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
I was hoping to be done with the meeting, including executive session, by then. Do we need to adjust the agenda?
Maintain a quorum?
I'm thinking that maybe, since we're missing some of our board, that we might need to table some of the discussion coming up.
Well, all we have left
on the RFP, the draft proposal for the master plan, for instance. But anyway, I just wanted to bring to your attention that we will not have a quorum after 7 o'clock.
Okay. I think we can get through it quickly, because really all we need a quorum for is through the executive session. And I think we can do that in 50 minutes. So we're gonna go. Ready, go. Strategic plan, RFP, go.
So this is one of the.
No.
Executive session?
No, not yet.
Okay.
This is one of the district goals that we have set for this calendar year, and the timeline was such that we'd begin it sometime during 2022. So working with some other agencies that have done this and getting their RFPs for master plan, as well as a couple of folks actually working with some of the consulting firms that have done this, getting their expertise, just because I've never, besides the one that we just completed, which is different than this, never worked through some of this process. So I'm not going to say I treated this together, because actually it took a fair amount of time, but I think that there's probably going to be some discussion and edits and feedback that I'm looking forward to receiving. Put together a timeline, but honestly, it could be easily adjusted. And we haven't posted the RFP, so there's no need to hurry this, and I think Erica and Sue's feedback would probably be really important for this.
Okay.
But what essentially we're looking for is a firm to assist with a planning process for us. And we haven't done a master plan, as far as I can tell, in at least 10 years. And it's really important because the district has changed so much over the span of 10 years. We have additional facilities, including obviously the Sunset Recreation Center. Our district looks a lot different. Our tax rate looks different, or not our tax rate, but our tax base looks different because we've grown as a community. I believe that we're offering more services than we were 10 years ago. So I think it's important for us to get an outsider's perspective based on internal feedback, internal communication, interviews, stakeholder meetings, open houses, all those types of things, for the district to get insight onto what is really important for us as we develop over the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Some things that I think are important for us to consider is how do we best use these facilities put together in the district catalog or portfolio. How do we use these facilities best to complement each other? Do we still maintain a presence in the Bob Chisholm Center, for example? Do we consider how the Sunset Recreation Center and the Bob Chisholm Center are duplicate in some ways in terms of community meeting space? What kind of planning should we be doing to invest in potentially, replace parts or all of the pool? The pool is near, 40 years old, and it will not probably last forever in its current iteration. So those types of things. And so looking for a qualified consultants maybe to help with that. So that's what this is designed for. I think as I was forming it, tried to take what other agencies have done in terms of gathering community feedback. I think that's really important for our community to get buy-in and understanding. The other concern, and I know, I can't remember if it was, I had conversations with like 3 different board members today about the agenda, but one of the directors shared that, it might be confusing for some folks because we just did a strategic planning process.
Right.
But that was just for the SRC,
right.
and it included a lot of business modeling and projecting out revenues and costs there. So this is a little higher view.
The whole district.
And looking at the whole district.
I'm not, this looks very thorough to me. And we've done this once before for the SRC, it's kind of I thought it was good and thorough, but I think we can definitely, like you say, hold this off till we have a full board present.
Yeah, I agree. And just out of curiosity, in your research, did you get an idea about what districts invest in a project of this scope?
It ranges based on the size of the agency. I heard some folks that their budget was $20,000 or less, and I heard some folks that were close to $100,000.
Yeah.
So I think my recollection is that we budgeted 40 in the district budget for this cost, and I think given the size of the district and what we're asking for, I think that will be right around probably where we need to be. We paid a little more for the SRC process, but that was different again. And we had the subcontract with SEA, which was a lot of architecture and scoping and site work and things like that, as well as the expertise that SFA had was pretty significant.
Do you have, I think another place that might be excellent for some community involvement would be some sort of ad hoc committee for your evaluation team?
Yeah, so I think,
Is that in here someplace?
if you look, it might not say it in those words, but so there's a project team, and the project team, oh, sorry, no,
That's for the team that actually does the work, right?
yeah, so where is that?
The evaluation committee will be appointed to evaluate submitted written proposals.
Oh, where is
that?
1.7.
Thank you.
Evaluation and selection of
Thank you.
proposals.
So yeah, that could consist of, lots of different combinations of folks. I guess I was envisioning the right kind of community members, a board member or two, and then some staff as well.
Yeah, maybe a place for a reappearance of one of our budget committee members.
Yeah.
Like, I think the idea of opening up some opportunities for leadership, for
Yeah.
people who've expressed interest in the district might be nice.
Yeah. Okay. So I might suggest, is that just, one second, Mike, just that we table these dates and we'll revisit this either in a workshop or another meeting.
Yeah.
And I can share, now that it's been out to the board in a public document, it can be shared to the board. I can ask for feedback.
Great.
Okay. All right, Mike, did you have anything you wanted to say on that?
Yeah, I was thinking, this, really is strategic planning, and this is a kind of a bigger way to go than the district has gone before, but we're in a bigger place than we've ever been, and it seems good. I assume that this presumed consultant would facilitate a board workshop alone to work on our points of view, as well as perhaps some public meetings with which the board may participate as well, as community meetings. But I think this would be good, and have this fellow or person to facilitate, a board workshop as well. I assume that would be inclusive.
I would agree. All right, so we'll table that till next meeting. Moving along to the executive director review process and timeline. I know that now that we start that process, I should know this, but I don't.
Traditionally, it's been started in either July or August.
Okay. So what I had a little bit of a discussion with Skylar, and what we had done last year was I had the form, I sent it to everybody, then I tried to compile them, and then we tried to present them, and we kind of found that didn't necessarily work the best.
Right.
So I would kind of suggest that maybe we consider doing a workshop where we, I send out the form, you guys fill it out, then we come together as a team and have a discussion so that we can present a unified document to Skylar.
I think it's better. Yeah,
I think that sounds better to me.
Can we do a workshop that's an executive session workshop?
Yeah, but you can do a meeting that's executive session.
We can, okay.
Did Scott say he wanted to have this review in a public meeting?
No.
No, I don't know strongly about that right now, but I was you
I
could
just
do a
was-
workshop, but then the public.
Wanted to make
they
sure what was
can't come.
clarified.
You don't have public comment in the workshop.
Okay.
Or you could schedule,
A meeting and then go to executive session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes, I found, watching how council does it, they'll have a meeting before their meeting with just the executive session.
Okay.
So like, you might meet at 4:30
Yeah.
or 4, and it's just for that executive session. Then you have your regular meeting,
And
and
then
at that meeting, you could announce, whatever action you needed from executive session.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you can do it
I like that format.
lots of ways.
And I think it makes, it expedites it, right? That then we can wrap it up and move forward.
And the other thing that I had done last year, which we can discuss if we want to do that again, was I had sent out a 360 review Google form anonymous thing to all staff and compile, and then once we got those results, I sent that out to you guys just so you could see.
Yeah.
And then I believe, Skylar, you had also done a kind of a year in review.
Yeah, I kind of just try to make sure it's good for me, but it also helps the board, because I think we've had
A lot happened.
a couple of years of really a lot of stuff going on. Not all of it's because of me, but just, I think it's important for us to celebrate some of the success we've had and identify.
And do you feel like that's gonna be different than the district goals?
It's kind of, there's going to be a lot of correlation. The only difference would be the timing.
Mhm.
The district goals was really for
True.
the calendar year, and my review is kind of running on near a fiscal year.
But I think that's okay. We can look at progress, and what I don't want you to do is just spend time being redundant, right? Like, so,
I think that was kind of the purpose
That was
of
the point,
this, is like, so that
Have a
this
running-
process would be a little smoother for
Yeah.
all parties.
exactly. And have some agreed upon priorities, right?
Yeah.
So that you could sort of be tracking at in a similar way to how the board was tracking. Yeah.
So, do you want to try and have a workshop before our August meeting?
Yeah.
Not a workshop. I keep saying workshop. A meeting before the meeting.
An
with
executive session to
meeting.
start an executive session meeting.
Should be the
That's in front of
23rd.
the
Yeah.
regular meeting.
So maybe a meeting at 4,
Yep.
4:15, and just for that purpose.
Yep.
Okay.
And so is this conversation replacing our item 12 executive session?
No.
No.
Okay.
So we'll do that, and I will send out what are our thoughts on the 360? Was that helpful, not helpful, worth the time? I still have the one from last year.
You do still have it?
Yep, so I can just send the same thing out.
I think it's another data point for us to use in our supervisory duties of the executive director. And so I would propose that we keep it, and I think the fact that we did it last year, and hopefully we've obtained the results of that in some place, that we can then have sort of some benchmarks that tell a story over time.
Yep.
So I would propose keeping.
So I will send that out, and maybe give a deadline of like August 5th, and send it to the board so they can have time to look it over. And I'll send out the forms so you guys can look those over, and then we'll meet before and
I would
discuss.
suggest that you utilize Tina, that
Okay.
HR person, because this is really in her job description to help handle reviews and things like that. I do supervise her, but
Well,
she can be the one that distributes it.
Yeah.
Kind of is your point of contact.
and the form, I was, very, very, there's no thought for answers, like they can't type anything. And it was truly just on a scale, and there was no way to, it's truly anonymous. There was no way for people to give away, who they are, so I feel it was useful, and the information that was on there was good, but it's, I hope staff feels comfortable answering.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, I will work with Tina and get that out, because I'm sure I don't probably have the whole staff list anyway.
Yeah.
I think Darren helped me last time. Okay, so can somebody read the motion for moving to executive session?
So I moved to executive session for the purposes of conducting deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions pursuant to ordinance 192.660 1E.
Do you have a second, Mike?
I'll second that. If you'll excuse me, I'm gonna step away from our camera in just a moment as we enter executive session.
Okay.
And I'll be right back.
Hold on one second, Mike. We gotta take a vote. All in favor signify aye, opposed nay. Celeste?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We will move to executive session with how long do we need?
I think you can be in and out in 15 minutes.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So, with the goal of returning by 6:40. All right.
Okay.
So, Mike, you
And you're set.
Thanks, Adam.
Welcome.
You wanna make a motion, Lois?
I move that the staff proceed, with the letter that was proposed, during executive session.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Mike. All in favor, signify aye. Opposed, nay. Celeste?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Director report.
I will keep this very brief, because I know we have other things to get through, and it's my son Hob's 10th birthday, sorry.
10th circle around the sun.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for him. Getting old. Not him, me.
Yeah.
You'll see I updated our district goals. I think it's funny, because I feel like a lot of the goals that updated from last month were on the agenda or we talked about. I'm really happy with the occupancy report that we got from Brandon, and really enjoying working with him. Grant writer discussion was going well. We talked about the strategic plan. Sunset Pool, we brought back weekend programming, at least on Saturdays right now. So happy about that, but still some more work to do to get Sundays and get those features installed. Talked about the infant and toddler care. The IGA is still kind of on hold. And then the fee review, we've been adopted and approved to move forward, so that will be happening soon. I don't have really a lot of other things to say. As far as upcoming things, I did want to share, Melissa provided me with an update. Hopefully you guys have seen her market or maybe had a chance to stop by. She wanted me to share that we've had 6 market days so far and over 50 vendors, most full-time, some part-time. That's 50 each week. We also highlight nonprofit and service organizations like WIC, which is Women, Infant, and Children Program, Providence Seafood Hospital, the AAUW, Southwestern Garden Club, and more. In addition, this week we hosted the Pottery Club, SEPRD's Pottery Program. This last Wednesday, which is kind of the typical trend that we see in summer, we had the most attendees, over 1,000. And that also included 74 dogs, one cat, and a bird.
Okay.
One of the things that we're really proud of, and I think sets our market apart from some others and from what we were able to offer, is that we're doing these SNAP match dollars, which Melissa shared, and then up to $20 for double up food bucks, which is a really cool program. So just last week they processed over $550 in SNAP tokens, and then $260 in double up food bucks. So $800+ going out in the community of really good local farmers market food and goods, or food, just for those folks. And then the other thing that I think is exciting is we have one staff at least that's bilingual. Her name's Jocelyn. She was actually here in the SRC, or in the Bob Chisholm. She is working at the market now on Wednesdays to help provide a bilingual presence and to provide some support, especially to folks that might not have experienced one of those before, might not speak English as their first language. So really awesome. We still have Angie, who's doing an awesome job as market coordinator, and then maintenance team is doing great work at setting up and tearing down each day. Those are long days for them. So.
Do we have Jocelyn creating bilingual flyers?
We haven't done that for all of our programs. We have done it for some, and that's in our crosshairs moving forward. Jocelyn, yeah, she's doing a lot of really good work. We're tapping into her knowledge and skills. Yeah.
Okay.
As far as other stuff, we have our chalk art contest coming up this weekend. I know at least, well, I'm guessing Celeste has a full weekend of busy activities, but Catherine will be there.
I'll represent our board. Good.
Celeste, if you know any aspiring artists or people that love art, we are looking for some volunteers still.
Okay.
August board meeting date, you guys know about that because we're having workshop or another board meeting on the same date. The beach run is the Saturday of Labor Day weekend, and then the foot educational opportunity. SDAO is hosting what they're calling a summer conference, kind of end of summer in September. It's because they weren't able to offer that in-person conference experience because of the pandemic, but they're feeling confident that they can offer a one-day conference, and if any of the directors would like to attend, they can help. you make arrangements for that, it's at the Salem Convention Center.
Okay. Thank you, Skylar. All right, board comments, let's go.
So a couple things. First, I want to say, Skylar, it's so great to see the progress to the goals that we set out. You know, I think we had some aspirational pieces there, and the fact that we're making so much progress towards those is really fun to see. So thank you for that, and thank you for keeping that report updated. And I also wanted to say that the last 2 times I've missed the farmers market, but I did participate in earlier ones this summer, and it's such a great addition to our community. So thank you to staff for the work that they do on the farmers market.
Thank you, Celeste. Mike?
Well, I'm sure glad, Skylar, I want to congratulate you on really a great year, and I'm happy to see this, you know, things coming together with the city over the property, and you know, I appreciated the update from the consultant on the occupancy. I thought they did a very nice job. I look forward to seeing his documents when I'm able to. I will not be back in Seaside until the middle of August at the soonest. So if possible, maybe if you could mail anything to me that's pertinent, so I could review it sooner, it would be great. But I don't want to create any inconvenience on my part. I thank you and your staff for a great job.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. For myself, I would just like to reiterate, you know, thank you to Brandon. That was a really great presentation. It was nice to have him walk us through the progress made towards full occupancy, and, you know, seeing what needs to be done on the building to fulfill our vision for that space. And I just would like to say that I'm super excited about the chalk art contest. I hope people will come out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And with that,
Sorry, I just remembered one thing.
Yeah.
I want to highlight and appreciate Adam,
Oh, yeah.
who is filling in tonight and providing our IT support.
No.
Adam, if you didn't know, he's
returned from Southern Oregon.
returned from OIT, sorry.
Yeah.
And he's a really smart kiddo. He's worked for us for a number of years, but came back because we had this weird gap in our staffing with Darren taking a little vacation out of the country, and then Isaiah, who was our network support manager, I can't remember his title, he just had a little one, so he's taking some time off for that. So Adam, thank you so much for your awesomeness over the last few weeks, and I don't know if you're going to be around, but you're always welcome to the district, so thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, with that, meeting adjourned.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey, I got both my cameras working now. I don't know what's going on.